Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some ProRevenge. Please check out the KCC Discord linked in the description down below. There you can talk to me and a whole bunch of KCC fans who hang out there on a regular basis. I look forward to seeing you there. Our first story today comes to us from Kibu Fox. Cancel a land lease and hope to make a windfall? Hope you like a lot of dirt. Let's jump right in. Let me preface this by noting that this revenge was not my doing. At least, not exactly. It happened back in the 90s when I was in high school and centered around the type of school I attended. So, in case you weren't aware, it's very common in agricultural communities to have what are known as farmer schools. That's not a technical term, but more just something easy to define them. The schools are generally organized by the local farmers, and while you still study the various courses needed to get into college, you also study farming technology courses and get credit hours for work study, working on one or more farms. The area I lived in was surrounded by a number of large farms which grew cotton primarily. So during the year, we'd spend time out in the field both tilling, planting, and harvesting. One of the farms near the school was this 1,000-acre spread that, like the others, grew mostly cotton, though sometimes they rotated to soybeans or silage, basically corn, but you don't harvest it. This farm had a long partnership with the school, so the students provided near free labor for the farmer. The farmer leased this property from some out-of-state owner and paid them a portion of the revenue from the harvest. Imagine my surprise then when I and many of my classmates arrived at the farm to do our work study, and the farmer instructed some to crew the sprayers and start spraying herbicide on the fields, while others, myself included, were to take tractors and discs and plow everything under. The farmer wanted every square inch of the fields returned to just dirt. We were shocked, to say the least, but after some discussion we set to work. It took us the better part of a weekend to do so, and when we were done, the field was in a beautiful, if barren, state. The farmer thanked each of us personally and paid us about $500 each, quite the sum for a 90s high school senior. We returned to the school, told our headmaster that the contract was completed, and he informed us that the farmer would no longer be working with the school, and we'd been sent to one of the other larger farms for the rest of the year and our work study. It was probably 2 or 3 months later before word started going around about why we'd been instructed to destroy the crop. Granted, these were just rumors, but based on how things turned out for the farmer, I suspect there's some truth to it. So apparently the landowner had decided that he was not going to renew the lease the farmer had on the land. This lease renewal just so happened to fall a few weeks before harvest season would start. Given that the average cotton farm earns about $1,500 per acre, a 1,000-acre farm would easily net the owner $1.5 million. About $500,000 of that being pure profit. I don't know what the farmer's lease was, but it stands to reason that it wasn't anywhere near that. So this landowner had figured out a neat little trick. Let the farmer get a good crop planted and then refuse to renew the lease. The farmer would leave the plants in the field, and the landowner would just need to pay some contractors to come harvest it, and they'd earn a profit. Since at the time the farmer's lease wasn't up yet, he decided to prevent that from happening. His act of revenge against the owner was to prevent them from cashing in on their hard work. Sure, it destroyed his farm, and he had to sell off most everything he owned to buy some property for himself, but he'd proved a point. The owner did try to sue the farmer, though he, the owner, really didn't have a leg to stand on, or so I was told. I think the court ruled that since the farmer was still under the lease when he had the land tilled under, that it was his property to do with as he wished, and thus the landowner couldn't tell him what to do with his property. I learned a rather valuable lesson from that man, beyond what I learned about farming. That lesson was, never ever cross someone with nothing to lose. Now, I don't know all that much about farming myself, so I was kinda glad to see that OP added a little bit of an edit onto the bottom. It says, since it was brought up in the comments, let me add some details here. Cotton is one of the few crops which leave a negative nutrient value in the soil, meaning that after harvest, even if you till the dead plants under, or even if you till them prior to harvest, you won't have as much nutrients as you started with. That's why farmers will plant another crop, usually winter wheat, in place, and then till it under rather than harvesting it. This is something commonly called a green manure, but it works to put nutrients that the cotton pulled out of the soil back into it. While the ground wouldn't have been completely dead or sterile, any crop planted on that tract of land without further treatment of the soil wouldn't have produced the same acre per acre yield that a comparable crop would have had he gone to harvest and planted the secondary crop. Which means that the landowner would either have to plant the green manure and spend money that way, or pay by the ton to use artificial fertilizer. Okay, so I went to the comment section on this one and it didn't disappoint. We've got to go through this one with you. It's a comment trail of gold starting with, "Reap what you sow. There's no cash left with no till." This has been very informative. Even tractors were angry. You could tell that from their furrowed plows. I'm finding this thread quite irrigating. You could say his plans were soiled. You could say the farmer was intractable. Going a bit further down in the comments, I actually learned a little bit about farming from OP. There was a question asked of OP that says, was there nothing to harvest that could have been sold as premature crop? Harvest and haul everything the week before the lease is up? OP replied with, cotton doesn't work that way. With cotton, typically, you let it go to bud, and then, when the buds open to reveal the fibers, you spray a defoliant on the field to kill the plant. You let it stay in the field a couple weeks, mostly till it's dried out, and then harvest it. You don't do a staged harvest like with some crops. For example, with corn, you have two basic harvest methods. If the crop is still green, you can harvest it for silage. Silage being a kind of animal feed. In that case, you cut up the entire plant, stalk and all, and harvest that way. If you wait till it dries out and dies, you harvest instead for grain. Note, the reason you spray to kill the plant is so it doesn't drop the buds. If you didn't do this, the crop would simply fall off the plant and you'd be back to square one. Do me a quick favor and take a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're actually not subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. This next story comes to us from Saida Mayjet. Using my parking space? All good. You will be using it forever. Let's jump right in. So, I'm living in Japan now, and here people ride bicycles a lot. You can't leave your bike anywhere, and you have to pay for parking. Between $1 and $2 per day. There are very few free parking areas for bicycles. Most people leave their bikes at the same place, so they pay monthly because it's cheaper, and you have your own space. This started a couple of weeks ago. Someone in my building started having a guest who decided to steal my bicycle parking space whenever they came to visit. Sometimes they stayed the whole night, so I had to go to the station, pay $1, and come all the way home walking, which meant I would need to walk to the station the next day. Getting up earlier, walk like 20 minutes to the station while carrying my heavy bag. All the bicycle spaces have a number, which means they are reserved for someone. Mine is the 105, but this effer decided to take mine whenever they came to visit. The second time this happened, I told the building manager, but they didn't do anything. The third time, I saw the bicycle there. It was the same red expensive bicycle. I left a note in Japanese saying, please don't leave your bicycle here. This is my space and I am using it every day. I found the note taped with the tape I used to tape it on their bike to my parking space, and it had a couple of bad words in Japanese at the end. Basically, he was not only stealing my space, but making fun of me by insulting me. Fine. It's just fine. I probably wouldn't have done anything about it if he hadn't written those words. This triggered me and got the worst in me. This person did it again a couple of times, so I knew this would continue. I was thinking about buying another bicycle, a better, more expensive one I could use to go on cycling trips, so a good chain and lock was needed anyway. I bought one of the thickest they had at the store and decided to try its efficiency. I locked his bicycle next time I saw it there. It hasn't moved for the last 7 days. There were 2 notes. The first one was a very aggressive one, with more bad words and threats about going to the police, which I don't care. Let's go that way, buddy. Second note days later was an apology, and they begged for me to unlock the bike because they tried to break it, but they couldn't. I guess he has learned his lesson. I'm pretty sure he won't do it again, but I just want to enjoy this feeling of victory a couple more days. I will free it in 2 to 3 days, I guess. Now, OP clarified a couple of things at the end with an edit. It says, thank you very much for the awards, the support, and all the comments. You guys are amazing. In order to keep my name out of any legal issues, I changed parking lots. It is not as close as this one, but I could come back in a month or two, and I would be getting a new space, so it would be okay. I left a tiny and very discreet note saying I will free his bicycle in exchange for $100. I wanted to ask for more, but probably he wouldn't pay it. I wrote, tape the bill under the seat. I will wait a couple of weeks, and if he doesn't pay, I will take it out at night, as far as possible from the place, steal his seat, cut the brakes and tires, and all the other small pieces I can get or destroy. I can't steal the bike and dump her somewhere else because he locked it, so I would need to carry it. The lock I got is the thickest and one of the most expensive in the bicycle shop. You can't cut it with the normal tools because the thing is as thick as my finger. I'm pretty sure you need some kind of industrial tool to cut it. It would be easier to cut the parking device because the metal is thinner there. I think in this case, I would just leave the lock on the bike and request a new spot from the management. Literally just need to report to them that somebody's been in your spot and you need a new one, and then the management can deal with the removal of that bike. I'm guessing the fee to get it back from the management would be a lot more than what you're wanting to charge that person. Plus, you'd get to see them sweat it out a little bit longer while their bike's stuck there and they can't do anything about it. This next story comes to us from Attention. Oh, no, we'll leave it at that. Neighbor yelled at my mom with cancer. I got his car towed. Let's jump right in. Just so this story makes more sense, I live in a smallish gated community, and me and my neighbor's house are in the corner of the community, and our garages face each other, so we can't pull out at the same time, etc., cause it's a tight space. Our direct neighbors consist of a couple and their kids. The wife is nice enough, the kids are okay. But the husband, recently found out he's now ex-husband, is a total butthole. We'll call him Sam for the purpose of the story. We and the community HOA has had multiple previous issues with Sam. First was the night that he was in the house screaming obscenities at the top of his lungs to his wife in the garage. The cops were called, but nothing happened. The second was him illegally dumping a mattress outside our gate, which he was recorded doing on various Ring doorbell cameras and reprimanded. And then there was the incident with my mom. My mom, who had cancer at the time, was headed to an appointment, and she opened the garage to leave, and Sam's big truck was parked outside of his open garage, therefore blocking my mom from leaving. He was nowhere to be found. My mom sat patiently waiting for 15 minutes before honking her horn. Not even 30 seconds later, he emerges from his house and stands behind my mom's car, angrily screaming that my mom is a bee, and he knows we reported him for the mattress, which we didn't, and yelling F you, etc. at the top of his lungs, waving his arms in the air like an idiot. Finally, he gets in his truck and whips it around so my mom can leave, now late for the appointment. That's when we knew Sam was a complete butt. After the incident, we noticed more often that he would just park his truck in front of his garage, again, therefore blocking ours, and would disappear for 30 to 40 minutes. The final straw happened last week. I'm at work and get a Ring doorbell notification that my mom is entering through the front door, which was weird because that means she didn't park in the garage, she parked in one of the parking spots in the neighborhood. Yes, there are other public spots in the neighborhood that Sam could have been parking in. And in the background of the camera, I can see Sam's dumb truck once again blocking our garage. 30 minutes go by and it's still there and I'm fed up. I screenshot the video feed and send it to a member of the HOA and send a message outlining how this has been happening for months, blah blah. He screamed at my mom. And what did they do? Called a tow truck. F you, Sam. I've towed my fair share of cars that were parked in places where they shouldn't be. One thing you'll learn very quickly though, is that if you have a problem with somebody, call the tow truck a lot earlier. There's no point in having it happen for months. If they're blocking your garage, you have a right to get out. Call the tow truck, have them impound the car or truck, whatever's in your way, and then they're gonna have to pay a lot of money to get it out. This next story comes to us from Top Desert Ace. Thank you, Donacius, for reminding me of this fun story of revenge. Let's jump right in. I'm at work on break browsing ProRevenge while I wait for the next plane to come in. I'm literally just a gas station attendant for aircraft. And I was reminded of a funny story while reading Donacius' locker thief story. Obligatory not my story, I was barely involved. Info leading up to the revenge. So back a while at my other job at an animal shelter, myself and a couple coworkers were talking, and one coworker mentioned that her son's car kept getting messed up in the student parking lot at the high school. So I asked why, and she said that apparently another student has it in his head that one particular spot in the student parking lot is his, despite there never having been assigned parking at that school. Now, this kid, who I'll call Little Crap, has a tow truck. Not even one of those big flatbed trucks, it's a crappy little beater pickup with a tow hook in the back. If you've seen the movie Cars, think slightly bigger than Mater. Anyways, whenever someone parks in Little Crap's spot, he then tows that person's car out and parks in the aforementioned spot, usually damaging the vehicle in the process. Well, while my coworker was telling us this, I said, you know what would be funny? Parking the Bearcat in that spot and weighing it down. It'd be effing hilarious to see that Little Crap try and tow that big chungus of a vehicle. The chief of police was chatting with us. The animal shelter in my hometown is considered part of the police department, and officers will occasionally visit us every once in a while. And he laughed and said, I would love to see that. The revenge. So, to start, the state I live in, according to the laws, moving a vehicle a certain distance without the owner's consent and without proper towing permits is considered vehicle theft. I was told this story a few days later, so here's how it went down. The police chief placed a bait truck in the parking spot and set up a couple undercover units close by, and the truck itself was weighed down with a crapload of cement bags. My coworker said she was surprised the truck didn't collapse under the weight. Sure as crap, Little Crap shows up, sees the truck in his spot, and attempts to tow it away. Now, the plan was for the undercovers to come out and arrest him right then and there. What happened was that Little Crap did a burnout trying to move the truck. He was successful for a few feet, at least the bare minimum for a misdemeanor, and then the back axle popped out of the tow truck. The undercovers came out and arrested Little Crap. The camera footage was obtained, which showed the roughly 100 other times he's done this, which of course only bumped up his charges. Now, I have to admit I didn't know what a Bearcat was, so I looked it up, and apparently it's an armored vehicle that some police stations use. Now, OP was asked in the comment section down below, why does your hometown PD need a Bearcat? And OP replied, sometimes crap happens. Check out all 4 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching, I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.